I believe we are live. So hello and welcome to everybody who's online and everybody in the room at the moment. Welcome to this talk brought to you by TechNExt and Digital Leaders streaming online. I'm Sam Manson. I have the pleasure of being the Director of Client Experience here at Opencast. And I think that reflects, I hope, my 25 years of working in client services and my passion for finding new ways to work more effectively and engagingly with clients. Before I welcome our speakers, I do have some due diligence that I have to do. So there are no fire alarms due. You can exit left. As I've been told, if you're at home, you can make your own arrangements. If you do need to go to the toilet, also please do turn your cameras off and make your own arrangements at home or exit to the far right in the kitchen. There are captions online for those that need it. If you hit CC on the Zoom Live link, you'll be able to access those. And the format for this evening is we will be having the first talk, then we'll make some time for questions, then we will have talks 2 and 3 in succession, and then final time for questions at the end. So our speakers are Jacqui Leggetter of DWP, Davies Brackett and Lagay, who are Opencast consultants. As part of introducing them and Partnership for Impact of the focus for tonight's talk, I'd like to talk a little bit about why partnership is so important for Opencast. And I think that's because at Opencast, we really do believe about unlocking potential of people, and that's people in terms of our people, our clients and citizens. Now, we do that by listening and really seeking to understand how people are feeling. And then we understand what they need as a result of doing that and turning that into deliverable outcomes that have both business and social impact. It's really important to us. With DWP Digital, our partnering journey started some years ago with 2 DevOps working consultancy in the integrations area. And that's grown to working in teams, rainbow teams, blended teams, call it what you will, but we are now effectively working across 25 different services in 5 key areas of DWP Digital. And so without further ado, I am going to hand over to Jacqui, who is going to talk to you about how our work makes life better for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Good evening, everyone. So thanks for joining us in the room. You had good motivation with sandwiches and a bit of Prosecco. So thank you to those joining us at home. Hopefully you've made your own arrangements for some bubbly and some snacks as well. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jacqui Leggetter. I'm one of the Deputy Directors in Digital Group. I've been around IT for more years than I care to remember. I've had careers within careers in Digital Group, and my current role is twofold. I'm currently Head of Integration Services, so building all of the underlying technologies that enable us to do data sharing across DWP out into other government departments and with private sector partners. We'll talk about some of those in the projects with impact in a bit. I also have a secondary role in Digital Group. I'm the head of the SRA enablement, our strategic reference architecture, which is our new strategy for building services based on composable architecture patterns. And my responsibility there is to enable the whole organisation to pivot towards our strategic reference architecture and build all of our new services and transform our services, particularly our citizen-facing services, into holistic citizen journeys using common services, common patterns, common ways of doing things. So that's who I am. Who are DWP? DWP have around, actually the number's gone up, we're sitting at about 90,000 staff at the minute, paying just under £200 billion in payments each year. That's 23% of GDP. We hit almost every household in the UK at some point in their lives, be it through supporting children in low income and separated families, working age citizens through ill health and disability, unemployment benefits, and also hopefully we'll all reach retirement as long as they don't keep moving the age out to the right. Hopefully we'll all reach retirement and have a good state pension built up for us. And also, last but not least, families who have had bereavements. So we often interact with citizens at quite a traumatic time in their lives. And we particularly saw that during the pandemic, where, you know, almost 4 million people lost their job overnight before the furlough scheme was announced. And of course, our department had to pivot to that. And that's where it came to fold in terms of the impact that you have on citizens' lives. People who had never interacted, never claimed benefit before, found themselves claiming universal credit, needing benefit in order to keep up mortgage payments, to put food on the table. It's those basic needs that we kind of take for granted that we keep going in society. So partnering with DWP, we've been on a journey over the last kind of 5 to 6 years in terms of reducing our dependency on suppliers. So we've been moving away from outsourcing our services, taking ownership, owning not just the IPR, but the designs and the patterns, and owning the services themselves. So we've brought pretty much all of our services in-house, including our hosting and support, and we've got control of all of our services now. There's nothing outside of some of the HR services, the support services that I can think of that's fully outsourced now. But that doesn't mean we don't work with suppliers. It means we work with suppliers in a different way now. So we've forged new partnerships with a wider range of suppliers. So traditionally we worked with the big 5 because that's who it was easy to work with, yeah? And changing the way that we work and changing the services that we buy has really opened up a new world for us in terms of partnerships. We work with 3 core models. Of course, we still buy physical things, hosting, tooling, software, toilet rolls, yeah, all the basic needs stuff. We still buy services, but we also buy a lot of resources. So our new ways of working, we still outsource, as I say, a small number of services. For example, document scanning. We don't want to be a scanning unit. That's not our core business. So we outsource our document scanning. But those scanned images come back into us and we process them. In most cases now from DWP Digital, we work jointly, we work in rainbow teams, or we outsource specific pieces of work as a service, but we retain ownership of that service. So the way in which we've worked has changed, which means that we've developed new partnerships and we've been able to open up those opportunities to work with more localized SMEs. So we think about all of the digital hubs that we have up and down the country. Most of our digital staff is not London centric. A lot of our top 5 companies are London centric. So working in this new way has really enabled us to work a lot more with small to medium enterprise organizations, build on those partnerships. Of course, there's still room at the table for the big 5, using those where it is appropriate to do so, but we've got a much wider supply chain. And certainly for me over the last 5 years, Sam, as you said, we started off with 2 DevOps starting on the integration team, and it must have felt really strange at first being the only 2 Opencast people in the building. I hope we made you feel welcome, Dan. But nevertheless, you know, quite strange concept, new way of working. And we've grown from that. You know, it was really successful. I think what it has enabled us to do is, and we use this model a lot to augment existing teams. So we want to refresh skills, we want to bring in diverse thinking. When we think about the services that we build for citizens, we want those services to be representative of the citizens who will use them. And that means that we want to bring in people working on those services from a a really wide and diverse background. And that means getting out into the regions and getting people from all over the place, not just from the big cities, and certainly not just south and southeast centric. So it's been really impactful for us bringing that diversity of thinking and creating that opportunity for us to work together, bringing in additional skills into DWP Digital, learning from those people, but also giving some really clever people the opportunity to work on really impactful services. We talk a lot about people being motivated by building tech for good. And sometimes that's just gives you that little bit edge above building tech for profit. So working on these services that you know one day you might use yourself as a pensioner, or your grandma might be using soon. There's definitely a good motivational factor and a good feel-good factor in the building tech for good. And I think opening up those partnerships, we've never, in the 5 years we've worked with Opencast, we've never pulled out a contract and said, well, it said that in the contract, because we just don't do that. We build partnerships, we build strategic relationships, we talk openly, we talk honestly. If something doesn't work for either one of us, we have that as a really open and honest conversation. We deal with it and we move on from it. We really welcome input. So even in areas, Sam, you were just saying to me before, we need to catch up what's happening in the SRE. So even in spaces where we're still evolving and still thinking, and we're not looking out to buy something, but stepping in and offering that advice, that coaching, that bringing that experience to bear is really important to us. And that's all part of the partnership. So regardless as to what's written in a contract, it's about the wider value add and the bringing in the wider experience into that's what makes it a partnership rather than a contractual arrangement for me. So I think working in locality where we can, we bring people into our local hubs a couple of days a week so that they can actually become part of the team. And what we've done is we've grown. I think we've got something like 140 consultants across various projects at the minute. That number will fluctuate, I'm sure. But we have extended over those projects, and I think being able to talk openly and honestly about what we've got coming up, what's in our roadmap, setting up those demand signals, working with Opencast, it's been really flexible. What we've asked for has been stood up. Where we've not had skills, you've been really good at stepping in and helping us build those skills and helping us build learning paths. So it's not just about, I'll sell you some people or I'll sell you somewhere. It's helping us upskill as well, helping us continuously refresh and build the capability within the DWP community, where we've got loads of really, really talented people, but they're always up for learning something new. They're always up for learning from people in the outside sector as well. So just wanted to talk about particularly on integration. It was funny, I was trying to count up before I came in tonight, and I think I got the right number. In the last 12 months, on the integration services alone, and I think you've been involved in most, if not all of these, we've won 9 awards, some of those international awards. When I think about some of the projects that have been led, and it's anything, not just in engineering, but product managers, architects, QA testers, there's support, DevOps, there's all sorts of roles, and indeed whole teams that have been covered for us where we've worked jointly. Some of the things that I wanted to call out on is, for example, NHS prescription exemption charge. We had a really clunky cross-government process where somebody went into the pharmacy, ticked the box on the prescription saying they wanted a free prescription. We had no means of checking that, so they just got it. 3 months later, somebody would do a check and go, oh, they weren't entitled. So now, because it's taxpayers' money, we have to recover the, £12 for a prescription. We have to recover it because it's taxpayers' money. Costs the NHS more to recover it than the actual debt itself, but we cannot write it off because it's taxpayers' money. So there's huge process kicks off and it gets handed off into debt management. Citizens annoyed because they genuinely thought they were entitled. There's costs attributed to it. There's all manners of things. We brought in a product owner to help us design a service, a new service that would actually enable us to check the validity of a free prescription at the point of dispensing the medication. So we've connected an API up to the NHS service. So now if you go into any pharmacy in England, only because you don't pay for your prescriptions in Scotland and Wales, if you go into any pharmacy in England or online pharmacy, at the point they're about to dispense the medication, if you've ticked the box, it's free, they will do a real-time check. Yeah, that's really impactful on the citizen because they get the right answer there and then. That saved the NHS £250 million a year. So that's money, instead of chasing debt, chasing paper, checking up, puts money right back into the NHS for healthcare. So that was a really impactful project led by the user design and product, and won a couple of awards on that project specifically. Our payment gateway project was another project. I said on my first slide, we issue nearly £200 billion of payments every year. It's almost £1 billion a day. We have connectivity into the banking industry and we provide that connectivity. So all of that payment goes through our payment gateway product, which again, product managed by one of our Opencast colleagues. And again, really impactful. You can imagine the amount of security, safety, you know, all of the robustness, resilience, critical national infrastructure service designed and implemented really speedily in order to cope with the increase in universal credit payments. So again, another great impactful project. Working through strategic file transfers. You're going to talk a little bit about the Scottish Government changes, so I'll not steal that thunder. Citizen information services, building out some of those strategic common components where we can capture citizen information once and reuse it. Again, another core project for us. And Liam, you're going to talk about PIP Apply. So that's just a run through of how we work, how we operate, some of the projects that we've worked on. There's probably 50 more that I could read out, but those were the ones that were kind of headline and led to those awards being won, both through the civil service and through external tech awards as well. Happy to take any questions.
You do my job for me. Thanks. No, thanks for that, Jacqui. That was really insightful. And I hope that's given everybody a good picture of the way that we work together, but I'm sure there are questions. Ellen is coming to you.
Hi, Jacqui. With all the changes that you've gone through your ways of working over the last few years to get to where you are now, what are some of the challenges that you still face?
I think the biggest challenge that we face is probably one that's not unique to DWP, but that resistance to change, that resistance to transforming and going through that traditional change curve from, you know, get the tanks off the lawn to passive resistance, then silent acceptance before they actually come up the other side. I'm quite a change agent. I'm really positive about change. I always look for the good in it, even if it doesn't look good on the surface. So I find that quite hard to deal with. And I think, why don't they get it? But then I do get why they don't get it. And it's very much for me about bringing people on the journey, communication and collaboration. That's been a really big thing. And pivoting from waterfall to agile has driven us to collaborate a lot more, and it helps us on the journey. But that, I'd say, is probably our biggest challenge in such a big department, trying to get us all flying as a single flock of starlings instead of 10, 12 flocks of starlings is the current challenge facing us.
Okay, we have another question in the room. Charlie?
Jacqui, thanks very much. Absolutely amazing, insightful presentation. Right at the start, you said something like, of the 190 billion, was I correct in hearing that that's 23% of GDP?
Yes.
Which is a monster statistic.
Yes, it is. Yes, yeah, it is. It's massively impactful. And if you think about, you know, high proportion of that is pensions, etc. But of course, we have also universal credit that pays lower income households. So that doesn't mean that it's paying money out. A lot of that is topping up lower income households as well. And quite a lot of effort in universal credit goes into encouraging people to increase hours and facilitating better jobs, better salaries, etc. So it's not just about supporting people who are out of work. There's an awful lot of work. I don't know if any of you have seen some of the documentaries following the work coaches in universal credit. They do an absolutely amazing job at helping support people into work and into better work.
Ellen, do we have any questions online?
There is a question that's just come through. In our area, we are having a few issues where a DWP practice is mandating ways of working that is limiting the degree of proper collaborative working we can have with Opencast. Have you ever run into this? And if so, how did you overcome it?
The only thing I can say is your practice can't determine how you work with partners. My recommendation would be to lean into your commercial lead, and this partnership and the way that we work with SMEs is really being hailed as a good model from our commercial teams as well as from our delivery teams. But I would definitely say lean into your commercial partner and make them aware, because I would say that's interference. But
and in fairness, if that's coming from an Opencast team as well, it's lean into the client relationship directors that we have, because they have that direct relationship with the commercial teams and can often help to unblock when it's not specifically about the project. It's a good hand in glove.
And sometimes if it's a new way for working, I don't believe that people try to stifle things deliberately to, kibosh what people are trying to achieve. There will be a misunderstanding, or sometimes if people don't know how to do something, it's easier to say no than it is to say yes. If it's a DWP person that's asked the question, they can lean into me personally offline as well, and I can give some support around the channels that can help open up that engagement if that's where they want to go.
Okay, I'm looking at time. I think, is it time have we got time for another question? Are there any more questions online?
If anyone in the room wants to ask the question.
We will have more time at the end, but Charlie's going for it again.
Mega question. Universal credit is, I believe, hailed as a success policy-wise, and the structure that it's enabled people to make it better to work, etc. Have we got time to answer that? Has it worked as a tech implementation? There were headlines when it was being brought in, but the definition of success is often in government work. It's not been in the papers recently.
Yeah, it's a good point, Charlie. You will get 99 things right and one thing not so right, and it's the one thing not so right that will hit the headlines. Has universal credit been a success? My personal opinion is absolutely. If you look at the start of the pandemic, we had a caseload of probably just over 1 million people on universal credit. Overnight, we had 4.5 million new claims. If it hadn't been for universal credit, we would never have been able to support those people, not only from their IT system, but the actual construct of universal credit as a benefit itself, being able to lean into those people because they were used to having their salary paid every month. They didn't get redundancy, employers were all shut down, so these people were left hanging high and dry. Universal credit is the benefit that stepped in and enabled them to pay their bills, put food on the table, etc. And then coming out of the pandemic, if we look at Kickstart program, hugely successful, and that was based on the MI around who was most impacted by the pandemic. It was young people, it was the age 18 to 25-year-old group. So universal credit mobilized around the Kickstart program, hugely impactful. They've now pivoted to that, so now we're looking at over 50s. There's a significant number of over 50s that have maybe removed themselves from the workplace for a number of reasons. So targeting schemes now. without universal credit and without the work coach model, etc. And unlike some of the headlines that you will read, you are never better off on benefits. You are always better off in work. There is a better off in work calculation. So I do think it has been hugely successful. It's hugely impactful, and certainly the feedback from, I'm sure if you ask those 4.5 million people that got paid within 28 days of making their claim, despite being 4.5 million of them, would say yes, it was successful for them. I'm sure there are edge cases where people haven't felt that, by the way. I'm not blind to that, but you know, in terms of policy intent and technology, I think it's delivered exactly what it set out to deliver.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll hand over to Dan.
Hand over
now.
to Dan.
So I'll switch gears just a little bit here to a presentation that got into a little bit more detail on the strategic reference architecture itself. So as Jackie's mentioned, the strategic reference architecture, the SRA, is DWP's target architecture for the operation of DWP Digital, of DWP as a whole. And well, what does that mean, a target architecture? It's a transformation plan. It's a modernization plan for DWP Digital. It's one that DWP's created, and that Opencast is happy to have a place to work in and to work with. The aims of it, as Jacqui has mentioned, are to transform business capabilities and build reusable components that can be established, that can be brought together into services that work in a composable way, to reduce the cost of change, to accelerate change, to improve data sharing, both inside DWP and with DWP's partners out in the wider world, whether those are other government departments or other organizations outside that. And to get processes and systems working together effectively so that data and people work together effectively to deliver on the department's critical mission for society, which we've just been talking about. So making all of that stuff, the wonderful things that DWP does, easier and better and more effective as they go along. So how does our partnership approach work with it? How does Opencast come together with the Department of Work and Pensions to achieve the department's modernization goals? Whenever we as consultants come onto an organization, whether that's as individuals joining a team or forming a team, or in the wider sense of Opencast coming on as a partner supplier organization for DWP, it's on us to learn and to take on our client organization's goals as our own. And in part that with DWP, that's been getting on board with and understanding the SRA, the strategic reference architecture. And after that initial curiosity and discovery phase, again, whether that's personal or as a supplier organization, then we act on that knowledge and we roll up our sleeves and we get stuck in and we help achieve those goals as we understand them, and we refine that understanding as we go through it. And as we build and we learn together, then we can share, and we can share our experience of working in the SRA. We can share our experience of our understanding of it. And we can do that in our day-to-day, and we can work towards the department's transformation goals. So that's just a very brief overview of the high-level stuff. Now on to the work that I personally have been doing here. My work is in the integrations delivery unit. As has been said, and as you might guess from the name, it's about connection. It's about partnership. It's about bringing data together. It's about bringing teams in DWP and across government and in the wider world together. I work on 2 of integrations systems right now. One of them is the event platform, and another one is the external change notification service, ECNS. So both of these are what you might call back-of-house systems. They don't have web interfaces, but that doesn't mean that they aren't important systems for citizens. the impact of them is real. It helps getting data moving inside the organization so that people, when they tell one part of DWP that something in their life has changed, that other parts of DWP learn that effectively and can act on that information in a timely manner. And that's for both of these systems here. The event platform. The event platform is one of the ways that SRA services in DWP communicate with one another. In SRA terms, it's shared infrastructure. It plays a role in the data architecture side of things as well. As a shared technology service, it's about making those connections. It's about being a bedrock service that other teams in DWP can leverage, and where we can bring expertise that we have on the blended event platform team. I'm from Opencast. There are many other people on that team that I'm happy to work with. It's been, to Jacqui's point, lovely to work with people who are interested in learning new things and who are interested in sharing my enthusiasm for the underlying technology. It's Apache Kafka. I won't bore you with the details. I can talk for hours about it. So the event platform is delivering that capability. It's delivering it in the DWP SRA way, and it's a large part of the work of that is outreach and bringing that expertise, that central expertise, to other teams and helping them on their journey to produce services that work really well with that SRA bedrock goal. Another project with big Opencast involvement at DWP in integrations is ECNS. That's the External Change Notification Service. It distributes those DWP events, some of them from the event platform that I was just talking about. Well, they're all from the event platform, but it's some of the ones that are on the event platform, to other organizations that are outside DWP. For example, one of them is the Government of Scotland. So there are some benefits that are being devolved to Scotland. And so we need to coordinate with the Government of Scotland to make sure that everybody is aware when citizen circumstances change of what those changes are. And we want to do that as efficiently as we can. We don't want to be doing that on the basis of a daily or a weekly data dump. And we don't want to have external bodies coming to DWP and saying, got anything new, got anything new, got anything new, got anything new. So again, this way of thinking about these processes brings us to that efficient and effective way of moving data around. And the SRA is the driver for that way of working. Feels quite opposite to be doing that job of connecting the Government of Scotland with the Government of England in Newcastle in the Northeast. It's we're on that East Coast main line between the two of them. So why not have the data flow through there as well? So it's a good spot. There's plans for using it in other circumstances as well. TV licensing, for example, is one of them. There is a future in which the fact that you are eligible for a free television license means that the BBC finds out, of the TV licensing agency finds out about that, rather than you having to apply for it. So those are the kinds of things where we can deliver a real positive benefit to people as they move through life, and we're happy to be a part of that. ECNS uses all of the components of the SRA that we talked about. It's a collection of SRA compliant containerized microservices, if that means anything to you, that run on the department's SRA infrastructure. It uses SRA data to deliver those change notifications. The business processes around it are SRA processes. So being primarily an Opencast team that's delivering that with lots of other involvement from the DWP staff and from other partner organizations as well. That team has been learning a lot about the SRA, both at a conceptual level and right down on the ground. And we've been able to bring that knowledge to other Opencast teams and to move things along that way. So there's impact to all of this, and I've been talking about all of this impact as we go through. But being able to both build out those department-wide common services that are a backbone of the SRA, and also pathfind the use of and the integration of those common services as they're deployed, has been really great to be a part of as an Opencast member at DWP. So when we work at DWP, we're working toward that goal of delivering SRA compliant, SRA enabled services, adding in value and capability to the common services where we can, reusing other people's work and contributing back to that goal. And as we do that, we make good on the SRA's goals of modernization and efficiency and standardization and componentization that allow the department to continue its critical work.
Thanks very much, Dan. As I said, we're going to move straight over to Liam, who's going to talk to you about PIP, and he can explain that acronym when he goes for it. But yeah, over to you, Liam, and then we'll take questions from the floor and online.
Hi everyone, I'm Liam Lagay. I've worked for Opencast for nearly 2 years now, and today I'm going to be talking about helping DWP introduce a digital channel for personal independence payment, or PIP. So what is apply for PIP? So I'll just start with a bit of an overview, and then kind of we'll go into some of the collaboration and partnership as to how we dealt with a challenging project and got a desired outcome out at the end of it. So personal independence payment is a welfare benefit that's intended to help working age adults with the extra costs of living with a health condition or disability. And in 2022, at the time, 2.8 million citizens were in receipt of the PIP benefit. Historically, PIP was claimed via telephone, or you could also do it via paper claim forms. So the diagram at the bottom here, I'll go through it in a little bit more detail, just to try and explain kind of the process. So the citizen would have a life event. They would contact an agent to complete what's known as a PIP 1, or it's gathering basic information to start with. They would then wait for the paper PIP 2, which is your health information. It's gathering a much more detailed analysis of your health. The citizen has 30 days to fill in that health information, and then collecting any relevant support and evidence, send the PIP 2 back, and then DWP decides from there. So that's currently, well, that was where it was, and what we're looking to do in the future, I will get the screen button right, I promise. So our team was asked to help DWP with moving towards a full digital journey, which I'll explain a bit more. We were asked to help with an online identity check for what's known as a private beta. So for those who in the room who don't know what a private beta is, that is a limited introduction to users which allows them to look at new functionality. It allows us to learn and understand the user journey in more depth, and allows us to iterate and improve going forward. So in the current private beta at the moment, we allow 60 claimants a day, and eventually over time it will scale up. And the objective of this beta is to create a robust, fully digital application that can transfer across to Gov UK and be accessible to PIP claimants. And the diagram there shows what would happen. So the citizen would have a life event. They would access the service on Gov UK, register online, complete the basic information and the health information, and then could go through the identity check before DWP would eventually decide. Now, what I'll go through next is the kind of the challenges around that, and then how the partnership between Opencast and DWP Digital reacted to that challenge. So, as always, there was challenges. The first one being the time constraints. So there was some time commitments that had been cascaded up to senior management. I joined in January into PIP, and one of the first things, there was a couple of challenges on the back of that we had to adapt to quite quickly. So the first one was was new patterns being used for the first time when integrating with third-party services. So we were using what's known as the Kong management plane, which allows for configuration and redirect based on certain rules. We had to work with a team known as Dynamic Trust Hub, who provided that online identity verification. We had to work with the integrations as well to provide the connectivity. We also had to work with SRA coordination to help help move the project along and help maintain that collaboration. And also finally, there was a third-party testing team as well who we worked closely with in the final stages of the project. So as you can see, kind of touching on a lot of collaboration and a lot of partnership in order to look to make this a success. The second challenge was that we had further back-end functionality. We needed to understand that in a lot more detail, and the reasons why will be on the next slide, but we needed to understand that. So it involved lots of whiteboarding sessions, which I highly value face-to-face, but that was a really valuable session as it allowed us to identify what exactly we needed in order to help accelerate the project and turn it into a success. So what we did, so as I was talking about in the face-to-face, we basically identified tasks, and the key message was we needed it to be visual and make it as simple as we could, because we needed that visual nature in order to explain it clearly, not only to senior stakeholders, but we also needed to also mention it to staff in Opencast and in DWP Digital. So we created what was known as a wall of work. It's there, basically. It's just nice visuals, and it allowed us to identify tasks from front end, from the back end, what was DevOps tasks, and we were able to then transfer them into what progress report, like progress charts and things, so we could then easily communicate that progress to see where everyone, like how we were doing, basically. It also allowed us to identify the correct resources. So from that wall of work, we knew, for example, we might wanted one front-end developer, might need 3 back-end developers and a DevOps engineer, an extra tester. But it helped us to identify this. And this is the key bit of the partnership. We were able to be in an open and honest manner, speak to DWP Digital. And it was from that wall of work where, to be honest, we just looked at it and went, we need this extra help in order to be able to achieve what we need. We need the help. And it was from that, as I say, the true strength of the partnership came to light. So, oh, this is a new slide. So yeah, the partnership approach, open, honest communication. So as I say before, we had to go up and we just had to be honest, say, without that help, we can't meet this. We cannot meet this deadline, but this is what we need, and we need we need the resource to help us achieve this. And it was through that we were able to secure quite quickly what we needed, which was a real positive. Kind of went a bit too early there, sorry. So it's so extra resources. It allowed us to say, this is who we need. We need it really quick. It allowed us to have a really lean onboarding as well. So going through the project, what's the challenges, what we need, what's the desirable outcome, what's the goals. And then the key one here was fast feedback loops. And I wasn't just talking between delivery teams, I was talking across the piece. It was, if you had a blocker, it needed escalating there and then. It needed to go as high up as it could because time was precious on this project. And it was everything from blockers to any testing issues. Again, we just had to work together, collaborated, using good solid principles, pairing up where we needed to, sharing knowledge, working across teams, and ultimately just pulling in the same direction. And that was the strength of the partnership with the Pip Apply project. So finally, I'm going to go through. Oh, no, I want to say one last thing. In the last 15, I've been a software engineer now for 15 years, and it was without doubt the best collaboration effort I've seen. It wouldn't have been possible without everyone pulling in the same direction. And it was a real pleasure to be part of it. So thank you to everyone if they can hear. Finally, I'll go through the social impact of the project. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to remove barriers by allowing users to claim online. It allows the citizen to claim, to provide them progress their claim at their own pace. So if they make a mistake with the form, don't need to ring up, or they don't need to maybe start a form again if it's paper-based. They can just log in and check what they're doing and correct any mistakes. The pass rate for OIDV online is, well, as of the 6th of June, it was 59%. Chris has told us it's 60% now, so I'm quite happy with that. But what it proves is, it's as the product is maturing, the pass rates are going up all the time, and we want to keep that on a positive trend going forward. And one of the things as well that we want to is the time taken to reach a decision. During COVID, it did take longer, took a lot longer with COVID. But when the health information gathering system came online, it helped make processing applications significantly quicker. And obviously what we want to see is with a fully digital application route that it will continue to go in the right direction towards target levels. Creating completely digital claims, we want to make that, will allow DWP the chance to smart route claims in future. So to an assessor who might be experiencing that particular condition means better support for claimants, and also allows for ways for claimants to track their claims online in future, and makes what we'll have as repeatable claims easier for citizens in future. So that concludes that. Thank you very much for your time, everyone.
Thank you very much to Dan and Liam, and a personal thanks, and well done. Liam was very nervous. That was his first public speaking gig. You have a future. You have a future. It's fine. In public speaking and at Opencast. So, and on that note, do we have any questions about SRA or PIP in the room or online?
There are some online if you want to start there.
Go on then.
Question for Opencast. If we in DWP Digital could change one thing about how we engage with you that would make our partnership even more effective, what would it be?
Oh,
Wow, that's
that's
quite the question. I think that it's keeping on doing what you're doing. It's having that open communication and being good partners with us and being welcoming like you are. So I think that there isn't any particular one thing that jumps to mind immediately. I think it's about keeping on the track that we're on and continuing to do a really good job at making supplier and partner people feel welcome.
And the day you've got like-minded people who are really passionate about making a change, making a positive change. Yeah. So it's just, as you say, continuing that trend going forward and working together in that collaborative, effective manner. And when things come up, it's a part of the iterative process, and in how you look to improve from that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think even I would iterate that it's across all of it. It's that leaning in, as Jacqui said, it's making sure that we're all talking to each other, no matter whether there's a challenge, whether there's an opportunity we talked about, it's having that engagement and just remembering it's not just the people at Opencast who are within DWP Digital, it's all of us who have that active interest in how we might problem solve, particularly when it's cross-government. And leveraging those insights within the business. So yeah, just keep talking to us both ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't be scared to talk to us about what your ideas are as well. And we can work to make those a reality with you.
Mm-hmm. Tom's third question.
Thanks everyone for that. The one that you talked about in the presentation was the importance of fast feedback loops in the process. So that was really reassuring to hear that we're getting that in those projects. I guess this may be a question to Jacqui actually. Historically, maybe getting that within between the digital colleagues and wider business colleagues has perhaps been more difficult. Do you feel that you've been able to make headway on that now and actually get all of the key stakeholders in a project into that type of fast decision making?
I would love to say yes, but probably not. I think we're getting better at it. And I think delivering through the SRA, you have to collaborate, you have to have those quicker feedback loops because you're working across an ecosystem. If one part of that ecosystem doesn't work, your blast radius can be significant. So you have to think about that. So we're having to think in a different way. We're stringing common components together to support citizen journeys. And at the end of the day, there's either a citizen or an agent at the end of that journey. If one part of that thread breaks, the whole thing can break. So the collaboration is really key, the quick feedback loop. I think what we did in the Apply team was really novel because it's really easy when you're in agile teams within functions to focus on what your team's doing. And we're testing and learning as we're growing out the SRA capabilities. And one of the roles that we've been testing and learning, and all the agile people have fallen on the floor thinking about, actually, we've got a project coordinator role. We've got someone whose job it is to coordinate the delivery plans and dependencies across all of the teams that are codependent, and that was pivotal to some of the feedback loops and making sure that we hung it together. Now we're learning from that, and we're moving into our second experiment with a similar role. We've had such good feedback, and it's something that we may look at in terms of our operating model going forward, if that's a new role that we need. So I think there's something about giving as much autonomy as you can to the agile teams, but also be aware that as an agile team, you're no longer working completely autonomously, you're working as part of an ecosystem, and that means we need to lift upwards and outwards for that feedback loop to make sure you understand who's dependent on you and you flag who you have dependencies on, and that's the only way that we can dovetail the delivery.
Right. Thank you. Anyone? Kate? Ellen? Please.
It sounds to me like DWP is very much like at the forefront of a lot of government thinking on this, and what I mean by that is like the practical application. So there's obviously lots of strategies around digital ID and sharing data, but from a slightly further away perspective, it feels like quite often there isn't that practical success stories, which is fantastic to hear. But I guess one of my questions is, how does the rest of government interact with you and come and sort of try and learn, or is everyone off trying to invent this in different places? I'm just intrigued to see how influential you guys are becoming in terms of helping other teams to adopt this kind of architecture.
It's a really interesting question, because historically we've all battened down the hatches and done our own thing. There's a huge drive across government for us to share more and be more open, and all the way from our joint CTO council, where they meet regularly and talk about some of the flagship things that are happening in DWP Digital. And there are other parts of government are flagship in other spaces. So starting from that CTO council, but also through running real test and learn projects with other government departments. So we do an awful lot with the government digital service teams, and we've been building out shared infrastructure across the event platform on how we share those events cross government and how we can consume events cross government. And also in our API ecosystem, we've been feeding into a cross-government API catalogue. So we're certainly showcasing, championing, rallying round and almost showing off a little bit about some of the stuff that we're doing in DWP Digital, but equally we're listening to other government departments that are also doing some cutting edge things that we can learn from. And yeah, I think we've got probably the best opportunity and most supportive environment for that cross collaboration than we've ever had. And with the introduction, dare I say, AI, you can't go into any meeting without talking about AI, can you? Some of the guidelines that are coming out, some of the best practices, and where they've been running real trials around AI in places like the NHS and within the Department of Science and Technology itself, I think will forge even closer partnerships across government.
We're certainly seeing that on the ground in integrations as well. There's lots of willingness in other organizations to adopt this new way of working and to move forward with a way of communicating between departments that doesn't involve slinging files around once a month. So yeah, it's there really is interest in that on the ground as well.
Yeah.
Great. I can see we have another question in the room.
Can I ask a follow-on question, which is how much engagement is there internationally? I know it's complicated enough trying to fix the UK and some of our digital transformation, but are other countries interested in the way that we've done stuff?
Yeah, for sure. There has been a number of other countries visit the UK government to learn from us. In fact, a few months back, I did a session in London myself with the Singapore government, and they shared with us their Singapore Pass service. We've had sessions with the Canadian government, Australian government, and a lot of lean in from the US, not federal, but state-based government as well. So yeah, there's a huge amount of interest across the globe. And, you know, Rishi Sunak makes no bones about it. He wants the UK to be a lead, global tech lead. And, you know, we've all accepted that challenge. And I think surely in, you know, in our partner community as well, we want to do cool stuff. We want to do the big stuff. And we do want to show off a little bit. So I think that there's definitely every other week, I don't know if you follow Tom Reed on LinkedIn, every other week there's a foreign government visiting GDS to find out what the UK government are up to, and they're quite often posted that on LinkedIn. So there's a genuine interest in what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Okay, right, we've got 3 minutes left, I believe, and 2 questions online. So let's head there for our final 2.
Yeah, projects like PIP Apply are great examples of partnership working. What more can partners working on projects like this do to explain their positive social impact?
That's a good question. So I think it's just, in terms of when you're working together, I think share your successes. I think some of the milestones that you reach, some of the positive collaboration between teams when you've made a breakthrough, celebrate it, and knowledge share as well. It's key to knowledge share what you've learned. It's one of the key things. Obviously in Opencast we're taught that. I know it's a thing within DWP Digital as well. And we use that partnership just to work together and share that knowledge far and wide, I think is the best way I can describe that. It's knowledge is very powerful. And I think the more people who can know an area or a subject and things like that, it can only be good. And I think certainly in the project we've got a number of teams who can work on the components we've been building, because we've been able to share that knowledge, we've documented things, we've done lots of positive things like that and communicating that out. So I think it's just doing them things and doing it regularly.
I think it's really important to tell the story. Yeah? Don't just deliver what needs to be delivered. Don't just drive your project plan. Think about the outcome. Think about what it is that you're actually, the outcome that you're helping to deliver. Tell the story. Sell it within your organization. Tell it jointly through our digital engagement teams, and make sure that we we get those good news stories out there. Now we do that through, you'll see lots of articles on LinkedIn from DWP Digital. You'll see us nominating ourselves for loads of awards and all of that. So all of that is part of it, and sell it back into your organisation. It's really important that, you know, while you're working at DWP, you're still part of your home organisation, that they know the things that you're working on, not the nuts and bolts of I've built 300 lines of code or I've tested 5 cases, but actually I've built an online service for people to apply for PIP, for 3 million people to self-serve. That's the story. And I think that's the thing to pivot, to understand the outcomes and sell the outcomes.
What is the biggest opportunity in the region in terms of health tech? Sorry, do you need me to repeat that? What is the biggest opportunity in the region in terms of health tech?
Health tech is, the only thing I can say is health tech obviously sits within NHS, and we have the BSA based in the Northeast. Now the BSA is a huge supplier, digital partner for the NHS. So I would say through those channels is probably where the biggest channels exist. I think from speaking to the NHS very recently, some of their biggest challenges is grappling with ethical use of AI. There's so many use cases, and they've been doing so much experimenting with AI, but of course it's bordering on that culpability and decision making, and some real challenges while trying to clear backlogs from COVID, etc. So I think there's lots of great tech opportunities, but present challenges in themselves. NHS Digital and the BSA will be
The key in that, Okay, I'm being told I've got, is it one minute or one more question, Julie? Anyone in the room? Final question, or shall we wrap it up? I think, well, I'm going to wrap it up because I think we've all learned a lot. Thank you to each of our speakers. That was really insightful. Very happy to be here, and thank you for all your questions.